forensic hypnosis, which is working with the police and working with witnesses.
And this is the thing I find amazing, because I've heard you tell that story where you had somebody see a license plate in hypnosis across a dark parking lot. So can you tell us some more about those amazing police forensic hypnosis stories?
That was a good case. Actually, they did a reenactment of it. It was on Discovery on a program. And what happened was, this was a McDonald's drive-thru outside Toronto, and it was robbed at gunpoint. A young woman in her early 20s at the window at night. And the van drives away, and I said, freeze frame it. She said, oh, it's at the other end of the parking lot. I said, can you see it? She said, no, it's too dark. I said, reach out with your hand and turn up the brightness. So she goes like this. He goes, oh, it's brighter now. I said, can you see the license plate? She said, it's too far away. I said, zoom in on it. She goes, oh, it's a Quebec license plate. She rattles off these 6 digits. So detectives are writing like this, because I always work with the detectives present. Anyway, we never caught the guys, but they found a gray van abandoned on the Quebec border, and she was right about like 5 of the 6 digits. That's the case I remember that you found rather interesting. Outside Toronto, a different police service, a woman worked at a women's shelter for battered and abused women, and because she was a counselor, she never thought anything would happen to her. So she felt invulnerable. And there was, you know, a couple of rooms there for women to look after them if their husbands would be beating them or whatever, horrific stuff. One night, she was leaving at 11 o'clock, there was no one staying there. She locked the place up, left. Her car was in a narrow alleyway, and this guy had been stalking her. And he was nuts, to use a medical term. He was in drag, wearing a dress that looked like the one she was wearing. He had the same fabric. He had a wig. He was made up to look like her. And she comes out and there's this tall, grotesque, grinning male version of her. He attacks her. She freaks out and screams. He runs away. She's pissed off, wants to catch this guy. Calls the police. So they give her an interview, do the whole interview. She's determined to get him. And they give her 16 photographs of the perpetrators who match this description. In, I think it's a 50-mile area for this kind of thing would be reasonable. She looked, I don't know. She said he had a wig, he had makeup, I can't tell. He said, well, look again. She said, doesn't matter how many times I look, I can't tell. So they hit a dead end. They called me 5 weeks later and said, will you work with her to see if you can cause some sort of recall? Sure. We meet now the following week. It is 6 weeks after the crime. So, put her in trance. We're sitting and talking to a conversational method. So I'm there with the detective, the police videographer, and a female constable. So I give deposition on camera that I'm an expert in all of this. We sit her down. The cop's sitting there ready to interview her. They get the camera focused on her and the cop. I start doing the induction. He goes into trance too. He's never been hypnotized, and he's like, just gone. So the videographer had the sense to turn the camera a bit so this guy wasn't in the frame. And I just give her a meta, find what you need to find. Embedded command, find what you need to find. This key's going to unlock it. You'll only come back from hypnosis as quickly as you find everything you need. So this happens. It takes her 3 minutes to come out of trance. It takes the detective 9 minutes to come out. I don't know what the heck he remembered. And they give her the same 16 photographs, and she goes, it was that guy. I mean, that somebody's climbing the window. It's the guy. So the same 16 photographs, she nails it immediately, said it was him. And they said, well, how can you be so... It was him. Okay. They go make the arrest. The guy comes running out of his house with his housecoat and pajamas on. He said, thank God you're here. I knew you were going to catch me. He said, I'm going crazy with the stress of this. I need help. I need psychiatric help. They said, okay, well, read your rights. Read whatever you want. Just get me some help. So they haul this guy away. He winds up in the Clark Institute of Psychiatry in Toronto, undergoes chemical castration.
Wow.
And I taught this to the New York State Troopers at a lecture I was doing at a seminar there. And one of the guys there was Dr. Peter Collins, who's a forensic psychiatrist. And he said, I coincidentally did the chemical castration in that case. I know the one he's talking about.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just a weird synchronicity. But the power, the point is, this woman's mind, without even a very deep trance, was able to access sufficient information to get the help for this guy.
To pinpoint him after she couldn't.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
There was a woman who came in. She actually came to see me first for fear of flying, which is once you know the technique to get rid of that is a really simple thing. You can knock it out within a session. But she called me up about 2 weeks later, and she was hysterical. She was freaking out. She just found out she had a ping pong ball size lump in her breast, and when they did a biopsy, they found out it was cancerous and malignant. And she called me up. She had a 2-year-old daughter at home. She's 42 years old. She's stressing out over this and really just kind of wanted to get her head around the whole thing, you know. She came in to see me on a Saturday afternoon, and we ended up spending, I don't know, 3.5 hours together. And by the time we got finished, she told me she'd felt this warmth that kept building up as we were going through, because I was taking her in and out of sessions for that 3.5 hours. They went in on Monday, they did a local, and went in and cut this place out. And the doctor was so amazed by what he saw that he literally took the sample, got in his personal car, and drove it to Vanderbilt University so they could do a test on it. Because the cancer cells that were there on Thursday weren't there on Monday.
So the lump was still there, just not,
it was
no malignant.
They said it was radial scarring, and the doctor said it was the second time in his entire career that he'd ever seen it. I had another client who came in, and she's a very good friend of mine now. She had breast cancer as well, and we did a couple sessions, and she did self-hypnosis around that, and her cancer disappeared.
Oh, what else have you seen that we could describe as miraculous with healings?
Well, I'm going to tell you, and Josie over here, it was one of her family, so she can verify. But a 16-year-old nephew had a back problem. And they took him to the doctor, who x-rayed it and found a tumor on his mid-spine and scheduled a biopsy. Well, before the biopsy, she brought him to see me, and under hypnosis, we found that he had 2 previous experiences where a bully at school was on his back and so forth.
Okay.
And so I had him look at the problem and describe it. And he says, well, in mid-spine, there's a thing about the size of a plum, and it's purple in color. And the instant I said, can we fix it, he says it exploded into a bunch of little stars that disappeared. So when they went to take him back for his biopsy, I went along with him, and I asked the doctor, if you don't find anything, do you have to do the biopsy? And I had prepared the boy that no matter what their procedure, he would go through it without pain and discomfort. So they went into, the doctor looked at me like, what are you asking such a dumb question for? And they went into the room, and the technician, you could hear getting his equipment out, and he said, there ain't nothing there. The doctor says, hell, there ain't nothing there. Look at this x-ray we took a week ago. So they went ahead with the biopsy, and there wasn't nothing there.
So what did the doctors have to say after that?
Well, they were real happy that James had gone through the process without any pain or discomfort.
What did they say about the tumor being gone?
Period. Nothing.
So you're also a hypnotist, and I know that you're a psychotherapist first. So why did you choose hypnosis?
It's an interesting question, because I had this client who had been just traumatized and had been suffering from nightmares for her entire life. And she'd never had a night's sleep without a nightmare. And as I was working with her, I thought, oh, I need something more powerful than the people who brainwashed her and traumatized her. And as I researched that, I came up with Igor Ledachowski, who is a phenomenal teacher of hypnosis. And so I started studying with him, and I had this remarkable transformation with my client. Doing hypnosis with her, the first thing that happened was she stopped having nightmares every night. Now she was having incredible creative dreams that were healing her during the night. And they were remarkable. They were so rich and creative and helpful. And she was getting some relief for the first time. She was also getting some sleep. So then she started functioning better in life. And it just had this whole snowball effect of health on her. And now I'm pleased to report that this client who was really, really suffering and is now doing incredibly well, and she has her own business, and she's functioning, and she's happy, and she has a partnership, and she has a relationship, and it's just like a wonderful experience for her.
My instructor was a surgeon and an anesthesiologist. She was from Russia but had worked in China for 25 years. Anyway, we had a patient who had been blown up by the mafia. Again, this is Brooklyn, New York. And he got the mafia mad, and when he was lifting up the garbage pail cover, the bomb or whatever went off. And so his whole upper area was burned. And we could not put the anesthesia mask on him. This was for a skin graft. And my instructor, even if you have the nitrous and the gas like a little bit above the face, because the room air is going in, you're not really getting anything. Yes. And so she started talking to him in his ear. She just started talking to him. And suddenly he went, and we did the skin graft. And that was my first time seeing hypnosis. And it just was like, you know, like marvelous. It was exciting. It's like, how did they do that?
I remember I was watching a YouTube video of you, I believe, and you came across a mountain biker who I guess he had tumbled over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that, like accident scene medical hypnosis.
Okay, well, I had just seen Melissa Tiers had sent me a DVD about 2 weeks before of in a dental school, I think it was in Pennsylvania, where they had put in all bleeding stops in 3 to 5 minutes. As you know, if you put pressure on it. Anyway, they had put in like an IV kind of thing through the skin and then pulled it out, and the blood is dripping, and there's someone standing behind them with a stopwatch, and the lady was doing self-hypnosis, the dental instructor I think it was, and they had a stopwatch, and in a minute and a half the blood stopped.
So that in half the time.
Right. So I had just seen this. So my daughter's in middle school at the time, and they're having a picnic in this forested area, and we see these people coming out. This man's coming out. I need help. And so we're walking into the woods, and it's taking a long time. And being the New Yorker I am, my little antenna went up, right? But anyway, we came across the fellow, and he had fallen off his mountain bike, and had, even though he was wearing a helmet, he had hit his forehead, and he had broken his nose, and on the way hitting the rock, I guess, his teeth, when they came out, they ripped his tongue and his lip, right? And this guy is bleeding. Well, the first thing Ken does, I was with my husband, and he's checking the guy's pupils. He's responsive, and he wasn't quite sure the president at the time, but he seemed okay, but he's bleeding. And so we tried to pack you know, the area to stop the bleeding, but because he had a broken nose, we had like a t-shirt or something like that. Because he had a broken nose and it was bleeding and swelling, he had no airway, so we had to take out the pack, and so now he's bleeding. And I'm remembering this thing I saw from Melissa Tiers' video or DVD that she had sent me, and I said to him, I'm a hypnotist, I can help you. And I said, how about let's stop the bleeding? So anyway, I just started talking to him about the arteries closing, the capillaries closing, and just kept on saying the same thing over and over again. And the bleeding stopped. And my husband is like he's like really amazed. And then I said to him, well, how are you doing with pain? And so I started to take away his pain. And meanwhile, because we were so far in, it took the paramedics like 45 minutes to get there. So it was really like really nice to see that I could do such amazing work.
Emergency medical hypnosis.
Yeah, I started actually in high school. I was having terrible problems with IBS due to the stress of the war and the draft and trying to get into a college and so on and so forth. So I went to the school library and pulled out a book on transcendental meditation and taught myself to meditate. And that's how I could control my IBS problems. Well, later on, when we got together and decided we were going to pursue hypnosis, I discovered in training class that I had been doing this all along, and it was self-hypnosis. I was using it in 1985. I was diagnosed with a severe case of rheumatoid arthritis. In 1990, I was told they were going to put me on 100% disability and that I should go out and pick up my wheelchair.
Wow.
I walked out. 3 months later, using those mind control techniques, I shouldn't say mind control, but the self-hypnosis techniques, I found that I was in full remission. And that was in the spring of 1990, and I have been in full remission ever since.
And this is what I would call a medical miracle, because this wouldn't happen in orthodox medicine. They don't believe in the possibility.
The doctors over the years would continue to test me for my rheumatoid factor. The rheumatoid factor didn't change. Now, it's important to understand that I don't use self-hypnosis to control pain. That can be dangerous.
Sure.
All right? What I do is I use self-hypnosis to control the inflammation of my synovial tissue, the tissues in my joints, tissues in my sinuses, so on. If I can control the inflammation, there is no pain.
Right.
So I'm controlling the process and the progress of the disease.
Rather than the symptoms.
Rather than the symptoms, exactly. My doctor today just tells me, just keep doing what you're doing.
And you look amazing.
Thank you.
So.
And that's what hypnosis does. It gets to the cause instead of just treating the effects or the symptoms. And that's what we want to help others do.
We want people to understand that the power of their mind can literally help them do anything they want to do.
Right.
The only thing that holds them back is their own imagination.
And their own past conditioning.
Right. And what we say is you become what you say in the privacy of your own mind, and we mean it because it's true.